Hello and welcome to a fun-filled episode, a little bit different than usual, of Prepper Talk Radio. Shane and I are, I would say, at unique locations today. Shane's actually home.
I am home this time. I wish I weren't, but I'm here.
He wishes he were bugged out for the day.
Yes, I wish I were bugged out for the rest of the week, but I will be back up there this weekend on Friday. So.
Well, I saw your garden. I saw your garden start.
You mean my dirt patch?
Your dirt patch. Hey, everything starts somewhere.
Yes, I'm going to have to do a little bit more than just till the soil in that area. So
nutrients go a long way.
Well, I've got a nice big pile of manure, and I'm going to bring in some more topsoil and a few other things. So I'm going to plan for being ready for next spring. That's what I'm going to have to do. So.
Well, I posted, if you're not in the Facebook group, guys, get in the Facebook group, because I posted, as well as a bunch of other people have posted today, our garden progress. Pretty exciting to see everybody growing their, what used to be called victory gardens back in the good old days. If you're not familiar with the term, it's kind of a revival of such. People are growing gardens. In World War I and II, they grew gardens, calling them victory gardens because they were shortening the supply chain, eliminating additional services, and letting people grow their own food so that all the additional resources could go to the war. Well, it's a different kind of war now. We've got shortages and more coming. So rather than be fearful and doom and gloom, we're proactive. And if you want to learn more about that, go check out one of our previous episodes. We had Buna Tomalina. She was talking about gardening. We all got a ton of great information. That was, I think, her third time on the podcast. Amazing stuff. So with that, go check that episode out. Join our Facebook group. Go to preppertalkradio.com. You can find the links to all of our content. You can join in on the podcast. You can watch us on YouTube. And for those of you who are just finding out about us, welcome. Here's what I like to tell everybody. If this is your first episode, this does not mean you have to jump all the way back to episode 1 to start listening. You can pick this, and then as you scroll through our list, we've got 177 other episodes, or depending on when you're listening, we could have thousands, who knows? But look for the titles that intrigue you and go there. You don't have to listen to every episode. But if you want to.
That's true. We have so many episodes that are really not time bound, right? They're not a current event type of show, which, and I do a lot of, internet browsing. And if I see something's a couple of days old, I just pass over it, right? Because it's a lot of current events. But yeah, I think most of the things we've talked about over the years have been stuff that you can still use and apply today. So yeah, absolutely. Great point.
So get in there, have some fun with it. And today's episode is brought to you by the letter P, just like Sesame Street, right? Prepper Talk Radio, the letter P. Okay, well, I wanted to bring that up because we have a couple of cool things going on. If you go to Jase Medical.com, JASE Medical.com, they're going to give you $10 off if you use the promo code. That's why it's the capital P for our letter of the day, Prepper Talk. So Prepper Talk, all one word, all lowercase. It's going to get you $10 off. In addition to that, you're going to get what you're buying is the antibiotics you need in case of an emergency. It's a basic set. Shane's got one. I've got one. Paris has one. It's pretty awesome. It comes with some Z-Packs and some other medications and a booklet on what you need and when. So if you do get sick and you're not near somewhere where you can get help, this has the antibiotics to help you get through it. Not just sick, if you get seriously sick.
Yeah. What I was going to say is, we are definitely of the mindset and belief that in herbs and good food are medicine, right? And that's what I think we're going to talk to Buna about a little bit more in our next podcast. But there's definitely a place for antibiotics. I mean, whether for me or for my family, they're definitely good to have, although I would put them, below natural remedies, right? And that takes time to learn those things. So it's definitely good to have these as a backup if you want to consider them that. So,
yeah. And we've had one of our prior episodes, go back and listen to the Nicole Appelian episode. She talks about herbal remedies. We also have her book and some other books linked on our website, so go check those out. In addition to that, if you use that same promo code Prepper Talk and go to pyroputty.com, you can actually get this amazing fire starter that you can put underwater. You can pull it out of water. You can use it in any climate. They've got different climate sets available. You can get $10 off over there at Pyroputty. And then, of course, if you use the promo code Prepper, you can save 20% off until the 4th or till the 2nd of June on Fortress Clothing, fortressclothing.com. With that, I want to jump into our topic.
Let's do it.
I've been eager for this topic since we talked about it last, 4 weeks we've been going on.
And I think we did this topic several years ago, back Prepper Talk Radio in the 2015 or 16, 17, something like that.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
And this topic is prepper / apocalyptic movies, the movie genre all around prepping. The easiest one to say when preppers are set, you ask a prepper, what's the best prepper movie? You're going to get probably 6 or 7 times out of 10, one answer. And that answer is Red Dawn.
Red Dawn.
Not the new Red Dawn.
No, please, no.
The Patrick Swayze Red Dawn. The Roadhouse of Red Dawns. The Wolverines, right? It is legitimately one of the best movies in the world of prepping because it goes through the whole worst case scenario of an invasion. It goes through the whole worst case scenario of having to bug out during an invasion, getting to a location, and then that bug out location being compromised and having to go somewhere else. It shows how community comes together to provide resources for those who are fighting for them.
Yeah, it was completely unexpected, when the invasion happened, right? So there were some things that obviously in all these movies that we're going to be talking about, most of them are very unrealistic, right? They're a load of baloney. And I think a lot of them are a lot like we've talked about this before, the Doomsday Preppers, TV show, right? Where their true agenda, if you really see through, their true agenda is to kind of make fun of us preppers, right? To show how extreme we are and how ridiculous it is to be prepared and such. And I think that's honestly one of the reasons why a lot of these movies are made. Hollywood obviously has their own agendas, right? But I think if they make it ridiculous enough that people will say, okay, this is never going to happen. I don't have to even think about preparing for this. And so it tends to cause people to sit back and relax and say, oh, government's going to take care of us, right? We don't have to worry about this kind of stuff. Especially the role that government takes in a lot of these movies, right, is a little bit on the ridiculous side.
Always. In most of these movies, let's just be honest, most of they're completely fantasy movies, right? Here's this made up scenario. I mean, if you really want to get into it, apocalyptic type scenario movies, like the Transformers movies, Transformers are almost always focused on an apocalyptic event coming. Bad guys are trying to destroy the world and take over. Are we going to have a Rise of the Machines type of thing like that? Or maybe like Terminator, right? Or the entire Terminator franchise is trying to get to?
Not for a couple hundred years.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know.
But no, like you were saying, leading off with Red Dawn, that was, I think probably because it was made in, I think, 84, right? It is definitely more realistic than the stuff they try and throw in front of our face nowadays with all the CGI and everything, and they can really take it to a different level. But it was, watching it now, people will probably say, oh, this movie sucks. This thing is boring. There's no action in it. Everything's fake,
But it's better than the new one.
It is.
The new one is horse poo. It is terrible in every level. Like the younger brother is the crybaby the whole time, and it's ridiculous.
Well, I found it quite convenient in the beginning of the movie where the kids, they're at school, they're all together, they got a truck, they conveniently all hook up and head over to grandpa's store, or was it dad's store, and load up with everything they need right then and there. That's pretty convenient. That's awfully nice to have that kind of a depot of ammo and guns and food and sleeping bags and tents already there, right? So there's a first lesson to be learned right there.
How's that any different than the first Red Dawn?
Well,
they had a truck.
That's what I'm saying. The first Red Dawn. I don't know if I've even seen
the second one. The second one's the same, but instead of having to drive way out of town to get there, they're still in town getting all the stuff, and then they get out of town. But yeah, it's very unrealistic, but it's also kind of a tip. Like, okay, do you have resources?
Exactly.
And if you have resources, you have less things to stress about or worry about in a disaster scenario.
Yeah, so that's my first lesson to be learned in these movies is they had that resource at their fingertips. What do you have at your fingertips? You know, for me, and we've talked about this bugging out, you know, yes, that was a true bug out, what they did in that moment, right? It was really bugging out. How quickly can you get to your stash of things, right? To your firearms, your ammo, your food storage, your sleeping bags. Do you have those staged to where you can load them up in your trailer within 30 minutes, an hour, you know, who knows how much time you really have, and get out of Dodge with enough food to be able to set yourself up for success.
Right. And you can take that and also apply it to other scenarios like, hey, there's a fire and a wildfire is going to hit your neighborhood, and so you've got to evacuate. Or there's a tsunami or a hurricane coming, and something with you where you've got advance notice and you've got to evacuate. So it's like, okay, think about all the things you need. We've gone through this on prior podcasts with the bug out lists and emergency kits. Like, get that stuff staged and ready to go, and always have a backup place to go. Like these guys had a cabin to go to after they got resupplied. They went to the cabin, and then when they needed it, they went back for more resources and ended up adding 2 bodies to their group. But they also picked up some horses and additional resupplies, ammo, canned foods. And so thinking about after an event, you've got to come together as a community. And I think a lot of times people forget about that. They think, oh, it's just going to be marauders forever. No.
Yeah. All through the movie, they had the opportunity to resupply, right? And that's where, you know, looking at what's happening now with the shortages and everything, that may not be a possibility, right? That may not be, I mean, especially at the point of a gun, right? That's what they were doing, taking away from the enemy, right? And that's, you know, one thing that you and I have discussed, Scott, is people who are prepared with their guns and ammo, but not their food storage, right? And they are tactically trained, whereas, of course, these individuals in Red Dawn had no tactical training whatsoever. So they learned it pretty quick. It seems like they had plenty of time to learn that. And but how much better off you'd be right now with some tactical training, with some firearms training, be able to shoot your gun straight. You know, if you only have one gun, right? Know it well, right? Man with one gun, beware him because he probably knows how to use it, right? So a lot of little lessons definitely to be learned there. And the one that stands out to me the most is how did they all survive so well, so many gunfights, right? So many encounters with a trained enemy, right?
So they're actually using the same theory in tactical training and combat as the Star Wars franchise. The bad guys can't shoot worth a darn. Right?
You know,
if you look at every Star Wars, your stormtroopers, and I love how in the reboot, the new stuff, the guy's like, I can't see in this thing, and takes his helmet off. And it's like, oh, that's why no one can shoot straight. They can't see. Perfect, like clarity point. But I think it's funny because like you can look at pretty much any apocalyptic type movie and you could probably pull away some fun lessons, some humor, some sorrows. Like there's so many different feelings and emotions. I mean, just to go through just some examples, like the really bad ones, like the bird flu 2006, War of the Worlds, or The Colony. Like those are like really, really like darker type movies that are in the apocalyptic genre and prepping genre. Or you can go like, this is a really interesting one, is the 10 Cloverfield Lane, which is about a prepper. And he basically the whole premise of the movie is
John Goodman
in his truck hits this car with a girl in it, kidnaps the girl, puts her in his bunker, all right as aliens are invading, and he's not letting her out, makes preppers look like crazy people. This guy just happened to be a predator slash prepper slash
crazy
sociopath.
Yeah.
And he'd done this before with other girls. And so this girl's like, I'm getting out of here. And it shows like a massive resourcefulness, massive amounts of mindset. Like she was so determined. She eventually gets free and then finds out, oh, wow, there are aliens. And that could very well be a scenario. I don't believe it ever will be, but
you look at what the government's pushing right now. Aliens is a hot topic right now. So who knows what other false flag might be coming our way in some type of, I mean, they created a space force. How ridiculous is that? Sorry, Trumpians. That's just ridiculous. A space force.
Come on.
Please explain that to me. Please explain that to me.
They're basically taking all the Star Trek movies and making it real life. That's, I think. Well, I don't know.
Yes. Yes. Not Star Wars, Star Trek. Absolutely.
Star Trek.
Yeah. So one other thing I wanted to point out about Red Dawn before moving on to the next movie is really how hard it was. You know, I think you could really, of course, it's hard to convey that in a movie, but how hard it was for them, not only physically, but emotionally, you know, how tough it was when they had their one friend betraying them that had some kind of tracker on him, you know, and they shot him right there in front, you know, that as a younger kid, that came out when I was 12. And I think I saw it a few years later. Anyway, that was pretty emotional scene.
Gripping. Like I freaked out. I'm like, how would you ever shoot your friend?
Yeah.
Still, I'd freak out. How would you do that? How do you do that?
And that makes me think of the conflicted cards, right? You know, not to change the topic, but you know, that was a thing we talked about quite a bit. In our first iteration of Prep Talk Radio is going through the scenario cards of the conflicted card games, which had a lot of great scenarios just like that. What would you do if this or that?
Mm-hmm.
So I think a lot of these movies, or some of these movies, should at least cause us to think, okay, what would I do in that situation? Would I kill my friend, or would I allow another member in the group to kill my friend? How would you address that? How would you talk through that and remedy that situation? So I think regardless of the quality of some of these movies, I think there's some things to be learned, along with having some entertainment and maybe some, you know, be able to better prepare.
See, I look at most of these movies and I think more about the entertainment than I do about any lesson I could learn. I mean, here's one. Swiss Family Robinson. It's a survival movie.
That's a great one.
Right. And there's 3 versions of it. I didn't know that. The oldest one is like so old.
I think the one I like best, I think, is late 60s or something like that. I was going to look that up, the date on
50s or 60s, but the one Disney did.
Yeah.
It was far superior to the others.
They made it look way too easy, though. I tell you,
right?
They made it look way too
well. They
fun.
found an elephant on the island. That helped, right?
Yeah, go figure. That made it did a lot of fun. And ostrich and
the Great Danes showed up. An ostrich showed up. A zebra showed up. What island this was, I have no idea.
It's a paradise. You know, it was an ideal tropical elevation for them to survive. They were able to find all the food they need. And again, another good lesson. We're out west here. We're in a desert. I mean, Utah is the second driest state in the nation, right next to Nevada. And are we going to be able to go out there and just find everything you need growing on trees? No. Nope. Only can happen in a few places in the world. And they got lucky, I tell you that.
And there's a trade-off. I mean, you live in those places, you've also got a lot more bugs and other problems and cleanliness issues and stagnant water. And, you know, everywhere, every scenario is going to have a trade-off, I think.
Absolutely.
So what was the next movie you were going to bring up?
Well, I think the next one, of course, the obvious one to me, you know, is the Tremors movies series, right? And, you know, there are 7 of them. And I guess we should probably do a disclaimer or a warning here. You know, we may be providing some spoilers. So we'll try not to do that, I guess, and just try and talk about more lessons or such. But, you know, Tremors, the first one, of course, is the best. And I think it's really the first 4 rather than the ones after that. They really tie into the prepping aspect. You know, they're in a desert location I think in Nevada, so the driest state. And good old Burt Gummer is the ultimate prepper. And just lots of little clues, lots of little hints all through the movie. about how he's so prepared and everybody knows it. It's kind of like everybody, honestly, how everybody kind of looks at me like, oh, Shane, he's got that. He's a prepper. And
well, he talks about how he picked the location because there's only one accessible point in and out.
Geographic isolation.
He had a well pump system. He had a bunker basement.
Graboid barrier.
By the third one, he had a graboid barrier. Not the first one.
I think that,
or was it the second one?
The second one. Well, the third one is the third one.
Third one. Yeah. Second one, they're in a different location. But Bert is like, and you got Reba McEntire was in the first one. Kevin Bacon was in the first one. Like it was a pretty stellar cast for such a weird, weird movie. Like I remember when that came out, I loved it so much. Like I think I watched it 3 times in the theaters. My parents were just rolling
this week, Scott.
Rolling their eyes at me. Like, what is wrong with you? You're going to that movie again? It's terrible. I'm like, it's so cool. And in preparation for today, I tried to watch the whole Tremors franchise, and I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. It was hard. I've seen 1, 2, half of 3, and then 6 and 7.
The last 3 are a little harder to watch. They're still fun, but again, I think one of the main lessons I'd learned and I like about that, and one reason I'd like to rewatch the first 3 is, they're in their own world. They're on their own, right? They're separate from civilization. I mean, maybe 30 miles, right? Not that far,
right?
But they don't have communication. If phone goes down, and so they're on their own. So they have to take care of themselves, and you can see what happens when they reach out for help. Right? It's a disaster. When they call the authorities, as you can see, I'm doing air quotes, authorities come in to help them. And so,
but they couldn't because the phone lines were down.
But they, on the, I guess the third one, right, where they called back out. Anyway, gotcha. So they called the authorities in and made a mess of the situation. But how they worked together to solve the problem, again, community, like you say, always leaning towards community, and they worked together, just a small community. And the Kevin Bacon and Fred Ward were the handyman in the town, and they just got to know everybody and their habits and their strengths and weaknesses, and they just knew everybody. I think that was just a cool little community, how they worked together and solve this big problem. It's and of course Bert's one-liners, what have you got against being prepared? He's just making fun of these people that, well, why would we not take care of this situation ourselves? Why do we have to try and call someone else to solve it for us? Let's solve it ourselves.
Well, I love that he's like, we got enough fuel and ammo and food for everyone.
Well, they're in the bunker.
To get through this.
How long can we wait in here? 6 or 7 years, depending on your dietary discipline, right?
Yeah. I'm like, wait, what? 6 or 7 years? I'm like, oh, that's a long time.
We got an escape hatch over here.
Those people.
I like you, Bert. Fun movies. I think they're very entertaining, but again, also some lessons to be learned, and I just I like those because I kind of long to be in that situation where I'm more away from people and just want to take care of myself, and
I thought you wanted to fight graboids or something. I was like, wait, what? You want to be in that situation?
Either, as long as I had some dynamite and some RC cars, we might have a little bit of fun.
Oh, that's awesome. Shane, you're the best. You're the best. It's funny because like the whole genre, like you can go really anywhere with it, and it spans across time. It like you can apply prepping and apocalyptic stuff pretty much any time and any place. Case in point, have you seen Warm Bodies? It's a zombie movie.
You told me about that one. I did not get the chance to see Warm Bodies.
Okay, we're jumping into the rom-com area. Warm Bodies, spoiler alert. You need to go see it.
Sounds like a 1980s rated R movie is what it sounds like to me.
It sounds wrong, but it's basically the Romeo and Juliette story with the last hope of humanity being Juliette's side of things. Her dad has kind of become like this general, and everyone's gathered into this little part of the city, and they've reinforced everything, and they go on resupply runs to get stuff and find meds and do these things. And she runs into R, who ends up being the Romeo character. All you can remember of his name is R. And so she calls him R the whole time, and her name is Juliette. I think he calls her Jules. But it's funny because he's total zombie, but becomes
fall in love
healed.
and he's a zombie.
He's a zombie, but he becomes healed from being a zombie and becomes human again. And the whole film is just like the whole like total zombie scenarios, but it's bringing people back. But it's a rom-com. It is funny. It's entertaining, and it gives you some pretty far-fetched ideas. But another one that falls in the same line of things is Love and Monsters, which just came out.
I haven't seen it. Oh, is that a new one?
Yeah, this came out just a few 6-7 months ago, maybe longer than that. It just hit Plex. No, not Plex. Whatever. It just hit the streaming services. I think it's on Amazon. But basically, this guy and this girl are on a date. Is how it starts, and it's been the best summer of their lives. They're like 16, 17 years old, and all of a sudden, there's this comet that's hurtling towards the earth. And so they send up every nuke fathomable to destroy the comet. And they do, but all the nuke debris falls and transforms all the cold-blooded animals into giant monsters. So you have frogs that are like 15 feet tall, giant blob moving frogs. And
this sounds like one of my weird dreams.
Oh, it's a psychedelic dream, like the animals that are there. But it is hilarious because this kid, like, he ends up in a different bunker than her. His family's all lost. 7 years later, he finds her again on the radios, and she's like, "I'm alive," and he's alive, and he's like, "Oh, we're gonna reconnect," and everyone's in love but me. And he doesn't have a single survival skill other than he can cook. And his cooking, not that great, but he makes one thing really well. But he freezes every time there's a challenge, every time there's an invasion, every time there's a giant spider or creepy crawly that's 12 feet tall trying to get into their bunker. And he's like, "I'm going to go get her." And he survives 7 days on the surface and becomes proficient at surviving. And he meets some people along the way, and they teach him skills. They teach him how to use a crossbow. Like, they help him to stay alive. And he almost dies like every hour on the hour. Like, it's pretty funny. It's a lot of fun, but it goes to learning skills. It goes to mindset and adaptability, because once he finally got to where he was going, shortly thereafter, he turns around and goes back, and he's like, "Guys, you can live on the surface, and I learned how. Here's how you do it." And he creates a book on everything he learned about all the different creatures, how to get rid of them, what they like, what they don't like how to endure it. And it's very resourceful. It's very funny. It's a comedy, but it's a romantic comedy. It's another rom-com. But again, it goes to mindset. Mindset is one of the best things you can focus on. Mindset and skill set above anything else. So if you don't have money, you can't go buy the preps you want to buy, and you're panicking and you're worrying, learn skills. The more skills you have, like, you can use skills to basically barter your way into more food, into more water. Like, hey, so-and-so has extra water, but they can't fix the problem they have, but you can because you're handy. Fantastic. But maybe today you're not handy. Well, get handy. Start learning the skills and start getting involved with different things that you feel like you can do or that are in your wheelhouse, so that you can be more helpful and use those as skills you can kind of apply as trade items.
So there are so many movies on this list. We only got about 15 minutes left. Where should we go from here, Scott? What are you thinking? I mean, I've seen some of my favorite shows. I'll just list a few and we'll see where it goes. I love Oblivion, Dante's Peak, 2012, I Am Legend. Nah, not one of my favorite ones. World War Z. I like that one. I don't like the zombies in that one. San Andreas, Greenland. Did you get a chance to watch Greenland, Scott?
I have not. I put it on the list and I just got so busy. But going back to San Andreas, San Andreas is a good one. 2012 is a good one, because those ones are really all about natural disasters, right? That's one of the big trifectas of, I wouldn't say trifectas, one of the big uh-ohs in prepping. Like, most people are preparing for calamities, disasters, volcanoes, earthquakes, tsunamis, hurricanes, and they're also worried about, asteroids. They're also worried about, wars, worried about supply chain shortages, worried about pandemics, right? What was that? Contagion. That's another type of,
Mm-hmm.
type of movie that goes into this type of scenario. But you can kind of learn from all these. It's like, okay, we talked about Jase Medical at the beginning of this. Hey, it's good to have antibiotics. It's also even better to find out how to resolve a lot of the issues with proper diet and with natural remedies so that you don't get sick. But then, hey, if there is something going on, I don't know, maybe like a virus spreading all over the world, how can you protect yourself against that? So these movies kind of help pique your interest in different things and give you different ideas of, oh, those are things I could probably prepare for, or figure out how to do things with. Oh, I need to figure out how to make a clean area, how to disinfect somebody. Oh, what do I do after nuclear fallout? Well, in this movie, they showed that. Is that really how you do it? Then go find the truth.
A 70s or early 80s movie, and I forgot to look it up. I think it's called The Day After. I think that's what it is. It's a basic. I think it was made basically kind of at the height of the Cuban Missile Crisis, and so essentially, global thermonuclear war happens. The U.S. is attacked. I think the whole world's attacked, and it's about this family. I mean, it follows this one family, and they know the missiles are coming in. They're getting ready. They're throwing dirt up against the house. The mom is upstairs making beds, cleaning the house. She is literally has lost it that this is coming. The dad literally has to grab her and haul her downstairs physically before the missiles hit. And then it shows this wasteland of people trying to survive. And that's one I would really recommend. That's much more realistic, I think. And of course, more of a hot topic right now, because that's kind of they as in the authorities say that right now we're at more danger of global thermonuclear war than we were then.
True.
I still am not concerned about it. It's not a big worry on my mind, but that I think will show a lot of mindset. And I mean, it's a very, very sad, type of movie, but I think that's what it's called, the day after.
There's another movie that was kind of similarly designed. Oh, man, I'm trying to think of it. The government had built these giant ships. World governments found out about this.
Yeah. That's 2012. That's 2012.
Is that 2012?
They build
big ships
because
yeah, that's right. I was thinking of so there's the day after, but isn't there like a new one, the day after tomorrow?
Day after tomorrow.
That's the one with the three major giant freezing hurricanes.
Yep.
And then afterwards, the kids hike their way out and survive, and most of New York freezes and floods, and then freezes.
Exactly the line that they draw, that what's his name draws across the map there, basically where he says everything north of this line is too late. That would include you and me, Scott. So I would be staying here anyway. So
but that's okay.
We would figure out how to survive.
We've got fortress clothing.
There we go. That would make a world of difference right there. Absolutely. Especially
don't forget to use your code.
I guess I better really get some now. But one thing I wanted to point out before we run out of time is that, these are all fun movies, and maybe we'll learn a few things. But the ones I really enjoy the most are those true to life survival movies, right? Maybe they're a bit of a reenactment. It's based on a true story. But there's three of them I wanted to mention that I think were well done and great lessons to be learned from. Lost in the Barrens. I got these on a single disc with 10 movies on them from the Walmart bin, right? The $4.99 bin. I pulled this, I had 10 movies on it. I still haven't watched them all, but these three are ones I've watched, among some other ones. But Lost in the Barrens, To Brave Alaska, and Snowbound. And these are all true stories, or at least based on true stories of survival. Again, Alaska in the winter, Snowbound winter, Lost in the Barrens. I think that was also up in Canada and Alaska. Two young kids had taken a boat upriver and wrecked the boat and weren't able to get down, and winter came in quick and they had to survive the winter. And it shows a lot of the ways about how they actually survived the winter, which is pretty cool. So I would recommend looking into those real life survival movies. They're a little corny. They're not as well done, right? But definitely worth the watch.
They're less about the cinematography and more about the story. And it's interesting because there's so many neat stories of survival out there. it's funny because yesterday I was talking to my wife and she had to lift something really heavy and she's like, I don't know how I did it. And I'm like, you had that emergency moment where you could lift 10 times your weight, like survival mama. And she just starts laughing. She's like, no child was in danger. And I'm like, right. But like, it's one of those moments where you're like, I have to lift the car off my neighbor. Like, I will lift the car. Granted, it wasn't a car, but I was shocked. I'm like, how did you get, I don't even remember what it was now, but she got it out of the house. I'm like, that's impressive. You know, real life scenarios, real life learning experiences for people who've faced a survival scenario, like Aaron Ralston's story, 127 hours or I think it's what it's called.
Yes.
That's phenomenal.
That's a hard watch.
It's a hard watch, but it goes through the trauma in the mind. It goes through overcoming, like hitting that resolve point where, you know what? No, I'm going to live and I'm going to like, whatever it takes, I'm going to make it happen. And he does. And I think that's like the ending point I want to end on is like, if you decide you're going to get through whatever's coming, whatever disaster you face, as soon as you make the decision that I'm going to get through this, your odds of success are increased so many times over. I heard a stat once and I don't remember it off the top of my head, but it's like when you decide you're going to survive, you do, unless something else takes you out. But for the most part, you will. If you decide I'm going to get through this, you will. And it all comes back to mindset.
And the story of Everest. I mean, I wouldn't be, you wouldn't catch me up there anyway, but just of how some of these people survived, you know, I forget the name of the individual who was essentially dead and frozen on the ground, and the memory of his family came to him. He said, I'm getting up. He gets up, you know, his arm is frozen above his head. He loses his nose and his face and such, but he gets back into camp and he survives. It's an absolute miracle. So yeah, you're absolutely right, Scott. It is about mindset. And if these movies can teach us a few things about survival and about wanting to survive, having the desire to survive, then yeah, they're worth the watch.
Absolutely. And I think that's the point of this show. This show, we're talking more about entertainment, a little bit of education in the entertainment, but the high point that I want to end on is you need to make the decision to do something. You know, we're trying with the podcast, we're really trying to get to the end of every episode, moving to the positive. What do I do about this? How does this help me? How can I make this work? And I tell you, the more you learn, the more skills you acquire, the more knowledge you absorb, the more success you're going to have in everything. Take the example of CEOs. The best CEOs are reading about 100 to 150 books a year. And when I heard that, I was like, I am an idiot. I'm reading 4 books a year. Maybe they're not reading 100 and 150 books. I heard someone say that yesterday.
Yeah,
and I was like,
I've heard that too. Yeah. They have
at least one a month
to make. Yeah.
And when you're reading high-level books on leadership, you're going to become a better leader because you absorb and you learn those things. But if you want to get better at being self-reliant, if you want to get better at having a plan to keep your family safe, you've got to study. And then you've got to put that into practice. And that's our hope from this episode is, go watch these movies, have some fun with it. But then take a look at your situation and say, okay, maybe have a natural disaster. How would we do? How can I improve? What do I need to know? What skills do I need to get through this? If first aid pops in your mind, go learn it. If shelter building pops in your mind, go learn it. If sewing becomes a passion, build those skills and get that knowledge up, because you never know how it's going to help you. And it's going to make your mind stronger and your body stronger to have skills. And those skills are going to be what's helping you with creating a resolve to get through whatever could come your way.
And who knows when you need a 1980s lifted red Suburban on 35-inch tires with a snorkel to drive through a river to get it to cross to the other side. So you better start building that vehicle, because you just might need it.
What movie's that?
Dante's Peak, brother.
Oh, shoot. All right, you got me. You got me. That's anything lifted with a snorkel right there. Anything lifted with a snorkel is quite amazing. Actually, I should do a short later this week, a short little YouTube that goes over a vehicle that I just came across that I'm like, this could be the perfect prepping vehicle for me. I'm not going to tell you what it is right now. I'm going to save it, because I might just buy one of these in the next few months and start tweaking it out, because I think it's kind of dorky. but it's so cool. It is so cool. And with that, I'm going to leave you guys. Shane, thanks for being on this week. You guys, make sure you hit like and subscribe. Leave us a review. If you've got questions or comments, especially on YouTube, throw them down there and let us know what you think. If you have questions, we respond to all those. So make sure you engage with us. If you want more one-on-one attention, get into our Facebook group. Go to preppertalkradio.com and you'll find everything linked there. And again, if you want to save $10, use the code PrepperTalk and go to Jase Medical, get your antibiotics. So jasemedical.com and then pyroputty.com. Use the code PrepperTalk to save another $10 and get yourself some really awesome fire starter kits. Super amazing. Any climate, they've got something that'll work for you. And hey, remember to prep, be happy about it, because these are skills and mindsets going to help you in every facet of life. It's going to give you comfort and it's going to give you confidence. And we will talk to you again next week.
See you, Scott.